correlation that the more educated someone is, the more they know, the less they believe, or the less likely they are to believe in the supernatural assertions. Plus the negative correlation that religious believers are statistically less intelligent than non-believers. My name is...
Yeah, okay, but that could also be sociological too. It could people might be following the social trends of their whatever group they're in. That those studies are really really shaky. They're very shaky. And again, I'm going to let him talk some more.
And I talk about the psychology of politics, and I guess religion for right now. A meta-analysis of 63 prior studies, including data from 137 countries and all 50 U.S. states. Religious people are less intelligent, and the theorized reasons as to why are, number one, intelligent people...
Okay, I can't really... I mean, religious people are pretty dumb in some ways, but I've known so many... I understand that's a personal perspective, but I'm gonna let him go on. I'm gonna partially agree and partially disagree because these studies are very questionable a lot. You can be really dumb and just go with the flow of being an atheist if that's the trend, but you also have to keep in mind that being religious is, for the most of human history, has been the trend. So yeah, the dumber people are gonna follow that, So that doesn't necessarily mean that it's completely dependent on intelligence, whether you believe in religion or not. But I agree for the most part, but there's that nuance that they're really overlooking, and it can lead to logical fallacies.
People are less conforming. Number two, intelligent people tend to think more analytically, as opposed to more intuitive, gut-feeling style thinking. And the research shows that analytical thinking undermines religious belief. And number three, this is the most interesting one. What religion provides is also provided by higher intelligence. For example, religion helps you cope with fear of death, fear of the unknown, fear of uncertainty, and fear of the chaos and randomness of the world. Intelligence also produces these fears. Religion provides a blueprint on how to act and helps with self-discipline. Well, intelligence is also associated with self-regulation and self-control abilities. Religion can be self-enhancing, aka giving people a feeling of self-worth. Intelligence does this as well. Here's another interesting thing. The data clearly shows that intelligence matters more than education, with an effect size 3 times larger. By the way, how strong was the correlation between lower intelligence and religiosity? In order to nullify these results, there would have to be over 10,000 new studies showing zero correlation between intelligence and religiosity. Knowing this, you might not be surprised to learn that while the religious...
Okay, so again, I somewhat agree with that, but also there's so much nuance there that he should have made a completely separate video, and he probably has on that, but it's such a small clip. But yeah, there's also different types of intelligence. There's a lot of, computer programmers and stuff that are religious. There's a lot of people who are very insightful, and there's a lot of very absent-minded people that are atheists. And again, according to the study, sure, yeah, it might be slightly biased, but it's not as much as they're saying, is my point.
Extremists are all on the authoritarian right. The intellectuals of the world are not only predominantly secular, but they also lean left.
Okay, this is really bad, because this is really getting into culture now, because left and right wing are just social trends. The political spectrum is a social construct. So what he's saying right now is completely bunk, and this is probably, whenever he starts talking about this stuff, anyone who starts talking about the political spectrum as if it's a real thing, they're not legitimate in that field. So you should not be listening to them.
I don't think this is innate or necessarily genetic, but it is true that authoritarian...
Well, at least he said it's not innate, so...
Conformity appeals to religious people, and that religion has special appeal to stupid people, irrational people, because...
When you learn how to speak to a person's conscience and circumnavigate the intellect, the subject of evolution seems to disappear.
Young Earth creationist Kirk Cameron meant to say circumvent here, not circumnavigate. He's not starting from the intellect and traveling all the way around it to come back to it. No, he's treating the intellect as an obstacle to credulous belief in unsupported assertions of impossible absurdity. The intellect is an obstacle to being completely fooled by indefensible nonsense without question, reservation, or reason. That he chose the wrong word there proves my point that religion is stupefying. I'm occasionally asked what the biggest gripe is, my biggest beef is with my former faith. I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian home. I was a student leader, spokesperson for Youth for Christ. I was a broadcaster for a successful Christian radio station in Tulsa, Oklahoma for a dozen years. I was a true blue believer in Jesus Christ. I really wasn't given a choice to be anything else, and now I am an atheist. And people will say, well, what's your biggest beef with Christianity? Christianity made me talk like an idiot. Of course, this is not to say that there are no smart Christians. I know of several who are in some areas utterly brilliant. Their religious beliefs are often said to be compartmentalized, held separate from their rational understanding of the real world.
Oh, exactly. That's the whole thing. That's the kind of point I'm trying to make, is people compartmentalize things, sort of like this guy's extremely intelligent, but he believes in something like the political spectrum, which is complete idiocy. So he's compartmentalizing it.
More of an emotional perspective, not subjected to the same analytical scrutiny as everything else they might hold to be true. Because it's a personal attachment to an idea that many...
And again, that's the same as I think. He can go into depth about evolution and all this other stuff, but he is very shallow when it comes to politics.
...readily admit is not intellectually or rationally defensible. And so we just kind of leave them alone about that, and then they can go about their day and live regular lives.
And most people leave him alone about his political views. I don't, but...
Yeah. They don't appear to be stupid that way, certainly. And this is not to say that there are no stupid atheists, because, oh boy, are there. How do you think it happens sometimes that an atheist converts to Christianity? It doesn't happen often, but when it does, don't ask them to explain why they did. You will be disappointed in their reasoning, because the reasons, if we can call them that they give, are always invariably so much worse than if they'd never questioned the faith they grew up with in the first place. But on balance, there is no balance. The smarter you are, the more educated you are, the more likely you are to be atheist, while the vast majority of stupid people, with relatively few exceptions, are overwhelmingly religious. I don't think you get smarter when you give up your faith. I think that the smarter you get for whatever reason, be it biological or emotional development along with education, the more you learn, the more you question your own assumptions, and the more likely you are to realize that religion doesn't provide any actual truth, nothing whatsoever that we can show and thus know to be true.
And just to reiterate, there's a lot of people that, okay, they don't question their religion, but that's like terrible for them to do that, or if they do it very mildly. But they, in so many other aspects of their life, they question so many things, including, their field of trade or whatever. They really get into it, and then they might be really smart in other philosophical ways as well. So, yeah.
Instead, you're expected to blindly believe irrational idiots, fools, and liars who obviously don't know what they're talking about ever. And this is when you are more likely to abandon faith as being invariably, inherently dishonest and auto-deceptive. If you want an accurate understanding of the way things really are, then you have to realize that faith is not a reliable path to truth, but it's a great way to stay wrong about everything forever and never even know it. That is how you break out of religion, not through intelligence, but through honesty. For some
Yeah, I agree with that.
of us, the truth matters more than whatever we might rather believe. Whereas for believers, their belief...
A lot of people are stuck in religion for emotional reasons, just like they're stuck into politics for emotional reasons. So they're not being honest. They're blocking out truth so that they can feel emotionally secure or whatever. It's not necessarily that they don't have intelligence.
Belief matters more than whatever the truth is. So if you're one of those for whom the truth really matters, then you don't want to be fooled into believing anything that is not evidently true or even possible. Nor would you claim anything to be the truth until or unless you can show the truth with the evidence leading exclusively to that conclusion. This is where faith differs from reason. Faith is pretending to know things no one even can know, which of course is lying to yourself and others. And reason means understanding that if you can't show it, then you don't know it, and you shouldn't say that you do. Studies have shown that the more religious one is, the more...
Oh yeah, definitely. If you don't show it, you don't know it. But again, it's the same thing for an atheist. You can't show that there's nothing out there. Okay, so there's so many good theories on the possibilities of paranormal and spiritual realm and all that. Again, it could be as simple as we're infinite gods and we just created this for entertainment. It could be just that simple. But if you're an atheist, you pretty much 100% don't believe in anything like that, or don't think that that's a really good possibility. And that's pretty arrogant, in my opinion.
More likely they are to be both conservative and reactionary, expressing righteous indignation and moral outrage. They're more likely to support capital punishment and even the torture of prisoners. And likewise, the deeply religious are more likely to support corporal punishment of children. The rates of abuse, like homophobia, racism, and even child molestation, are especially high among the devoutly religious. I saw a study purporting that the more religious an offender is, the more heinous the crime against more and younger victims. You would think that they're just going to make people, forgiving and good, but no, that is the opposite correlation. And again, I'm not saying that all Christians are...
Again, I'm really skeptical on these studies, very. But when you get people into it's not really the religion. There's all sorts of sociological and cultural phenomenon that's going on, not just the religion. I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, but let's let him talk.
Evil, nor that any atheist is necessarily good, but studies also show that people who grew up with religion, who became ministers or missionaries or seminary students, dedicating their lives to God, who then later began to question their position for whatever reason,
find that when they finally discard their faith, then far from being lost like they used to think they would be, they instead find that they become more tolerant, less judgmental. They're more curious. They typically go back to college, often pursuing the science they were denied in their youth. Thus, they
Yeah, that I agree on. I mean, if you're getting yourself out of that sort of that fervent belief, that fanatical, that's the word I was looking for. When you're in that fanatical mindset, this is the train of thought that I lost before. When you're in that fanatical mindset, you're gonna be more extreme, and you're getting more emotion. You're generally gonna get more emotional. Okay, that's what the phenomenon largely is right there, and then you lose track of all sorts of other things. That doesn't mean there's not a time and place for fanaticism, but this is the real cause. This is what's really going on in those situations.
become smarter. They enjoy life more now that they know there is no afterlife. They can live in the moment and appreciate it.
Well, yeah, they're getting control of their emotions. They're getting out of that fanaticism, and they're able to take a more objective look at things. It's not necessarily religion. It could be a political belief. It could be anything. So if someone is more likely to be racist and religion, there's cultural and social reasons for that. It's not necessarily something else. It's not necessarily directly related. It's just that they're in a fanatical mindset with these cultural and sociological factors.
Savor the flavor of being. They're happier and literally better people overall. Even more moral. You don't realize how poisonous religion is while you're in it, just like you don't realize how bad smoking is while you're still addicted. But if you go a few months without a cigarette and take a puff, then you'll recognize it as poison, finally realizing what you've been doing to yourself all those years and what you've been doing to other people as well. There is no greater enemy of smoking than a former smoker, just like there's no greater enemy of religion than a former believer. That is my hope, and the reason behind this channel. It works, too. Even after decades of doing this, I still get messages almost every day from former believers thanking me for something I said or showed them that got them thinking or got them out of their poisonous.
And yeah, it's a great thing he does is point out all these flaws in Christianity and Islam. That's excellent. We do need people doing that. I'm not debating that at all.